Today I'm showing you how to make simple placeholders for your fall table using a miniature embroidery hoop and a needle punch. I really like the look of embroidery and it's a fun project, but I don't always have the patience to actually embroider. So I got a needle punch, which is similar, but it goes a lot more quickly. This whole decoration only took me about 20 minutes to put together, and I think if I did more at one time, it would probably take a little bit less for each one. So I'm going to show you how I made this so that you can make one too. To start, these are all the supplies. You need a 3-inch embroidery hoop, a piece of fabric. This is actually drop cloth from Harbor Freight. I had bought it to make myself an apron, and this is just some of the scraps that I had left over. So fabric, pencil for drawing your design. You'll need a needle punch, and this is just an inexpensive one that I got off Amazon. I'll show you how to load the embroidery floss into this in just a minute. So you'll need your embroidery floss, scissors, some tacky glue, and a popsicle stick. I made it a little tag, so I have 2 kinds of paper, an eyelet, and a punch, but you can use scissors if you wanted. And I have a punch and some leaves for decoration and a little bit of twine. Hot glue, and a pen for writing the name. So let's get started. Needle punching is different than embroidery. Embroidery, you push the needle through the fabric around to the back side and it's completely secured. With a needle punch, you're punching through the front, pulling it up and punching again, and it leaves a loop on the back. So there's 3 different ways to needle punch. So you can have it look like embroidery. You can punch through and fill your design and then trim these so that it would be more of like a plush if these were all close together. Or you can fill your whole front with the smooth embroidery also. So there's a lot of different looks that you can achieve with needle punch. You can see these little loops back here. My needle is adjustable, so I can untwist this and lower the needle. So you can see that there, or I can raise the needle. So the farther out it is, the more thread is going to come through the back of the fabric. And I think, let's see here, I want this at about a 4, and I'm not sure if that's, I don't know actually what measurement that is, but it's at a 4 on my needle. It's actually about 3/8 of an inch from the plastic here to the tip of the needle. So let's go ahead and load the needle punch. This is how you thread the needle punch. So we have our needle punch tool, the needle holder, the needle, the cap, the threader, and our thread. First we'll need to take the needle holder and the needle. And the needle has 2 little things here that are gonna lock into place inside of the needle holder. So you just push it in and then twist it, and now it's locked in place. And then we're going to insert the needle into the needle punch tool. So just place it in there. Make sure this little metal part is lined up so that it can slide over this these ridges here. And we're just gonna let this barely poke out and then go ahead and twist it in place while we load it with the thread. Okay, now we can place the cap on the back. And with the needle threader, we will insert the needle threader into the tip of the needle until it goes through and comes out the end here. Then with this needle threader open just a little bit, we can now insert the embroidery floss. And it just needs to be enough so that it'll hold it in place, and pull the needle threader until the thread comes out the other end. Then remove the needle threader from the floss. Okay, now we can change the needle out to about where we want it. And then the needle has a hole in it. So we're going to put the needle threader again through the hole in the needle from the longer side. And then again, open up the needle threader, insert the embroidery floss, and pull it through. Try not to put too much stress on the needle threader because they do break. And now our threading is completed. We have the thread that goes through the needle punch tool, out the tip of the needle, and then through the opening. So we have our needle punch tool all threaded. I'm going to set this aside and we can get our hoop ready. Before we cut our fabric, I want to cut out or at least trace a piece of paper for the backing. So this is the paper that we're going to make sure that we mark. So we want to use the outer ring of the embroidery hoop as our template. So just go ahead and place it on there and trace around. And then using your scissors, cut it out. We will cut just to the inside of the line so that it isn't exposed when it's applied. This is just a cardstock that I had. It's a cream color that I thought looked nice with the fabric that I chose. But you could also use cork sheets, or you could use felt, or just fabric. You can use anything you want to for the back. And I had this piece of fabric trimmed off. This is it's pretty thick. It's a canvas. So you're going to want to open up the embroidery hoop so that there's a good amount of space in between the two hoops. And then choose the side that you want. Like this one has some imperfections. This one's a little more smooth. Whichever you want. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's kind of rustic looking. And then there is you can see the grain on the fabric. So this one, I had it lined up pretty straight. So we'll just try to do that again. So you put the inner embroidery hoop down, cover it with the fabric in the direction that you want to be, and then take the outer embroidery hoop and place it over the hoop and press it down. And when you press it down, it's going to stretch the fabric a little bit, which makes it nice and tight. And then to make sure it stays in place, you can tighten down the hoop. Just fingertip tight. It's not going to get used. It's more of a decoration. So make sure it's nice and tight. And then this part here you can leave on until later. You can trim it off. We will be gluing it down. Now it's time for the drawing. This one I just freehanded, and I'm not that great at drawing, but it was just a basic pumpkin shape. You could also do leaves. That would be really cute. Acorns, just any type of simple fall line drawing. You could also find some online and print them out and trace them. So whichever you'd like to do. I just used a pencil because it wasn't as visible as a pen if I didn't hit the lines exactly when I was covering it up. So we'll just start about here in the center and draw an oval. And then I just added loops for the other lobes of the pumpkin. And it just has to be dark enough for you to see when you're using your needle punch tool. So I just made each outer lobe just a little bit smaller and a little bit lower. And then I will add this one. And it's nature, doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, and then for the stem, we'll start as high as we want it, and then just draw a slope down here. And then that one I kind of more free formed the stem. To get started with the needle punching, have our loaded needle here. I'll pull this back through so I don't have too much excess at the beginning. Maybe about 1.5 inches. And then choose where you want to start. We're going to punch the needle through to the back, and then go ahead and grab the extra thread so that it will be completely, this tail will be on the back side. And then as you pull it through, you're going to hold the tail in place with your finger. And then the direction of the needle is actually sort of backwards. So you can see the point of the needle so that you're working away from the thread. If you went this way, you'd be punching over your existing thread. With the needle facing, the opening of the needle facing away from the previous punch, just insert it through the fabric. Just punch it. As you pull this out, it'll make a loop. Go ahead and cover that with your finger and pull it through. And I'm going to go ahead and punch in the next space here. In doing that, you will hold the thread in place on the back so that it doesn't pull out as you're punching. You'll develop a pattern as you're going through. And then as you pull it through, go to the next space. And you can choose however wide you want your lengths of stitches to be. It's entirely up to you and how you want it. If you have a lot of smaller curves, you want to do shorter stitches, because the longer stitches will just make a straight line. So make sure you're adjusting your stitch to the scale of your drawing. So this is kind of what we have started here. So I'm going to continue pulling it out, holding my finger in place, punching through. Just make sure you don't punch into your finger because that would hurt really bad. And then you can keep turning it so that your needle is always working in the same direction and you don't have to change that, because that's when you start getting weird stitches, is when you change the direction of your needle. So as you get more comfortable, you can work a little bit faster. Okay, so now I'm going to work back up to the top of the pumpkin. So I pull my needle out and then start punching up. If you were to go to make a punch and it pulled out the thread like that, it's okay. Just secure the needle and pull this a little bit through until your needle is back where you wanted it, making sure you're holding from the back side so that it doesn't do it again, and then continue punching. And then see here, I kind of got off the line that I had. You can just pull it back to where you got a little bit out of a line. And then this this canvas is not super tightly woven, so I'll just, with my fingernail, I'll just kind of run it across the fabric to kind of fill in those holes a little bit. Do it on the front too. There, so you can't see it. So now I'm going to hold these stitches in the back with my finger, hold the tip of the tool, and pull the thread back through. So mistakes are super easy to fix. All right, so I'm going to make sure I'm facing the right direction again, still holding the loops on the back, pull the thread to the right length, and then continue punching where I should have been the first place. Okay, so we fixed that, and then just continue punching. So this part, I don't really want to travel back over where I just punched. So I'm gonna start a new thread length. So I'm gonna leave the needle through the back here, and you can see where the thread is right there. I'm just gonna take a pair of scissors behind the embroidery floss and just snip. And now my needle is free of the thread and I can pull it out, and this is what I have so far. So now my needle is still threaded. If I needed to, I could have put the needle threader back through the hole, but I still have my tail here. So now I'm going to start again. Okay, so we have our orange done. Now we're going to change the embroidery floss to brown for the stem. Make sure you extend the needle again, otherwise the needle doesn't go far enough through the backing to have enough thread. Okay, so we'll put that back at about 4. Okay, now when we punch it through, we'll have plenty of needle to grab the thread. Okay. So now we have all this stuff going on in here. We could trim these tails just a little bit so they're not flopping around too much. You just want to be very careful that you don't accidentally pull any of these threads, because it will pull out your design and then you'll pretty much have to start over. It's not really easy to fix these. So we want to make sure that our little loops and our embroidery stay secured. So we're gonna just glue it down. So I have some tacky glue here. Okay, I'm gonna actually just squeeze some of the glue onto the back of this so we get a good amount, and then we'll just smooth it around. You don't want to apply it to the fabric itself because you don't want it to seep through and see the glue from the front. So if you can avoid that. All right. Got a good amount of glue on there. I'll just smoosh it around just a little bit more. Make sure we get a little bit on each of the loops. You can let this dry, and then we are going to deal with this outer bit of fabric here. Okay, so I have my hot glue gun heating, and we're gonna work in small bits because we don't want to we don't want it to dry. We want it to be as flush as possible. So we want to work with a hot melt glue gun and just apply a little bit of the hot glue, and then while it's still hot, pull the fabric nice and tight over where the glue is. And then keep working all the way around. So when that's all glued and pulled in tight, just give it a minute to let it set completely. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and leave that there. And the circle that we cut earlier, you can do a test fit, make sure it's gonna fit nicely without overhang on the edge. If you want, you can trim it down just a little bit. So now we're just gonna hot glue all the way around the fabric, working quickly. You don't want too much that it's gonna seep out, but you want a good amount that it's gonna seal it nicely. There we go. And then place your paper with the side that you want facing out straight on and then turn the design over and press down firmly so that it sets nice and flat. Okay, and there is our back. So now we're gonna make our embellishments here. So to make the embellishments, I have a piece of cardstock. This is the off-white cardstock. I have a piece of the Leah Griffith frosted craft paper. This is the number 3 color in the succulent pack. It's a really pretty green. And then, let's see, I have the tag maker, the Leah Griffith by Fiskars, which came with eyelets. I have some twine. These are actually like a plastic or a paper, but just a leaf. And I have a 1/8 inch hole punch. So I'll go ahead and hole punch the leaf first. So I have that ready. And then I'm going to cut the background, the bigger part of the tag out of the green. So that'll be this one here. So I just turn it over and load the paper in. You want to make sure your paper has enough of an overhang so that it cuts well, and then quickly punch it. And then I'm going to use arrow-shaped one. To punch that as well. So now I'm going to use just a gel pen. I have this orange gel pen, and I'm going to write Dad. You can write it in pencil first. You can just go for it. I mean, you can always make more. These are pretty easy. So remember, you want to leave some space for the eyelet. So you want to start far enough over here that you can get the whole word or name. So either go above and below or move over enough for the eyelet. Okay, and make sure you let that dry so we don't smear the ink. And then we will get our punch back here. And I left a little bit of a gap here at the front. You could certainly line it up if you wanted to, however you'd like it to look. And then holding your tags together, we're going to use this hole punch in the front here. So I'm going to feed it into this slot. You can watch it, make sure it goes in there so that you can see punch. There we go. Okay, now still holding it together, we are going to put the eyelet through. This is the finished side here, the top. So we're going to make sure we put it down from the finished side that we want. Just like that, and then turn it over and set it down on top of this right there, and then close it and push it down. Okay, and that flares out the back side and holds the tags together. And now we can assemble it. So I have our piece of twine here. I want to make sure that we have an angle cut. So just trim off. And I'm going to feed it coming from the back, so I'm going to do the leaf first, and then the back of your tag. And then through the opening of your hoop. And then just tie a knot and double it. And you can leave your strings long, you can cut them off, it's up to you. There we have our cute little placeholders for Thanksgiving or any fall get-together.